You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Matt Adams, I'm Dave Griffiths. Glad to have you along as the NFL season rolls on into December and the Colts remain very firmly in the playoff picture with, to be frank, a lot of things going their way right now, and we'll kind of get to that, whether it's in-house or out-of-house with the other teams that are competing for those same wild card spots that the Horseshoes are. But plenty to get to this week in terms of the Colts controlling their playoff destiny and playing another team that is in that playoff picture later this weekend, visiting the Cincinnati Bengals at 1 o'clock, broadcast locally here in central Indiana on CBS 4. But we begin with the big news of the big Chap, you have something to add
Question
before we
first.
kick off?
You're
Yes.
smarter than I am.
Well, yes, obviously.
Can you control your destiny, or is your destiny what you're going to be? Or can you?
We're going to start with philosophy here on the Colts Blue Zone Podcast.
If it's your destiny, it's going to happen.
Right.
Very true. You don't control. I've always wondered about that.
Oh,
control
wow.
your destiny.
Okay.
So that's okay.
The Colts. I don't know. That's deep.
I'm going to go sit in the corner for about 3 hours and ponder that one.
Right.
So where were you going? Go ahead.
I did take an ethics and moral value theory in college. It was a really good. That was a popular course at Syracuse. Actually, there was a professor who taught it who was one of the most popular professors at the university. He was a black French Jew named Lawrence Thomas, and he was a wonderful man who always called everybody by their last name, Mr., Mrs., whoever.
Oh,
and,
it just wasn't like Griffiths. It was like
Mr. Griffiths. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What do you have to say on this, Mr. Griffiths? So, yes. Anyway, you've already got us down our
That's
first
one
rabbit trail.
hole.
Yeah, exactly, and we'll many more coming. But we do begin this week with the return of Grover Stewart. As we've talked about the past couple weeks, the Colts' rush defense has been
atrocious.
Atrocious is the word that Mike Chappell used on the Blue Zone pregame show, broadcast here in central Indiana at 11:30 a.m. on CBS 4 as you get set for NFL game days. But no doubt that the Colts' rush defense could use a boost, Chap, with how they have played in Grover Stewart's absence. He is back.
It had declined a little bit his last couple of games with them, but early on Matt and I were talking. They were like top 4 or 5 early, but they've given up, as Matt and we've talked about here, 153 yards a game in his absence, and 4.7,
Mm-hmm.
and it was 113 and 3.7 or whatever it was, and that's not sustainable. It just isn't. And what's crazy is they were 4-2 in those games.
Right.
That's everything that so much of what they've done this year is so against the norms.
I say it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't.
They are where they are.
Which probably speaks very, very highly of Shane Steichen and his coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with Grover, he just matters. He just does. What you hope is that when a player goes down for a game or two, that there's not a huge drop off to number 2, and this one it is. It is. I think they were fortunate when Anthony Richardson went down that they had Minshew. I'm not putting Minshew on the same level at all, as Richardson. But the drop-off to Tevin Bryan and Eric Johnson and all these guys, it's just – and it's not meaning to be critical of them. But Grover means that much. They were asking a lot more from Grover, from DeForest Buckner. And it's really amazing to me that they're 7-5 and they've managed without Grover Stewart this long.
What they've been able to do, though, in Grover Stewart's absence is really work up the pass rush in the past couple of weeks. And Matt, if you're going to bring back Grover Stewart and shore up the rush defense, you've got to make sure that the pass rush doesn't take a step back, too.
Absolutely, yeah. No, they've gotten some great plays from Dayo Odengbo, and my goodness, we talked about Kwity Paye and Samson Ebukam. They started off real strong, and then it kind of got into this lull mid-season. But the last few games, those guys have been terrific. So yeah, you're absolutely right. They've got to keep that going.
What is it? 21 in the last 4 games?
I believe so. Yeah,
wouldn't
quite a few.
Wouldn't you rather, if either or, would you rather have a pass rush
100%
than a leaky run defense?
100%. Like if this does something bad to your pass rush, then you have to seriously consider dialing back Grover Stewart. And I know we're playing the what if game big time, but I think that's another thing to your point, Chap, that you said in these 6 games they've been without Grover, they're 4-2. They're winning twice as often as they lose right now. In the NFL, that's a recipe for success. That's an 11-6 season. That's the playoffs. So,
but the plus is adding Grover, the people that he will replace snap-wise aren't necessarily the guys that are getting the pass rush.
You're right. I think that in relief still, and on third down, you can still bring Grover out if you want. If you like what you have right now on third down, if you really like Adetomiwa Adebawore coming in, playing on the inside on third down, if you think that he's added something significant to your pass rush, that you found him and he's developed well in his rookie year, then sure, keep doing it. But that's something, again, that Gus Bradley has to have first and foremost on his mind, that the pass rush cannot take a hit because you have found something there in Grover Stewart's absence. You hope the return of Grover can benefit the rush defense, but does not hurt the pass rush
because
defense.
The pass rush is
more important. It is more important.
Assisting the secondary, which still has issues.
Right, and it has had issues for quite a while. And we're going to have to pay attention to the practice report here on Thursday as we tape the podcast, and we'll look at Twitter probably to see from our friends out there who exactly is practicing. But once again, on a Wednesday, and a light Wednesday at that this week, Juju Brent's not out there on the field. And you roll your eyes. You're like, what the heck is going on? This is, I think, the fifth week now that Juju has been out. He will miss
5 weeks if he doesn't play this week.
Exactly, and he did not go on injured reserve. So, I think that I don't know if this is a big deal or a little deal. You ask the Colts, and they might during the season. Shane Steichen isn't going to tell me or us anything about this, but do they have to reconsider how they evaluate injuries? Because you might think this is not a big deal, but it might be a smaller issue, but every small issue to me in the NFL needs to be a big deal because you need to take advantage of every system that's given to you in order to be an elite team. And this year, the Colts have proven they have not been able to evaluate injuries well for whatever reason, whether it's been Juju, whether it's been Braden Smith, guys that should have gone on injury reserve that did not go on injury reserve. That would have opened up a spot on the roster. And again, you can say it's a bottom spot on the roster, but there's 53 spots on that roster for a reason. You get 46 or 47, whatever it is, active on a game day for a reason, because the NFL is tough. You want everyone out there. You want guys to take hits. You want guys to deliver hits, and every single spot matters. And if you're going to have a spot eaten up and you have to bring someone in, you could say, oh, well, we just elevated him from the practice squad anyway. But I still think it is at least a deal. Maybe it's something that Chris Ballard would be more honest with in the postseason when we're talking to him about, do you really think you need to reevaluate how you evaluate injuries, or is this not a big deal? But to me, it's at least frustrating.
It's a deal. Yes.
It's at least weird that multiple times this has happened this year, Chap.
But they had benefited from where they didn't desperately need the spot because of the way you can maneuver with the practice squad. But you're right. It's an issue. I really believe if and when we talk to Chris, it'll be, well, we thought Braden was going to miss 2 or 3 games. Well, then it was 4. Then, well, it should have been IR. And then when you get like now with Juju, IR almost isn't an option because that means the rest of the season. So it does put you in a bad way. And it's obvious to me that they miscalculated how long a guy was going to be out. But I still think you're right. You want your full arsenal of players. But in this is one of the rare times when they weren't desperate to have a player. They make very good use of elevating guys. And these guys are practicing. The guys on the practice squad, they're practicing. So I think it's just where they haven't really needed it, so it hasn't hurt them. But no question they miscalculated.
And with Juju, he had been playing relatively well, and he had been coming on, playing solid ball, and he was de facto their number 1 cornerback there, and kind of would be on the outside at least. Kenny Moore in the middle, of course. But it goes back to what we were saying a little bit ago with the pass rush lately. It's been probably masking some of the deficiencies we saw earlier in the year with the corners. Guys like Darrell Baker Jr. or whoever else is out there would be or Jalen Jones, who's probably their top cornerback on the outside right now.
And he had a tough game last week against DeAndre Hopkins, who can still play.
He's had 2 tough games, and to be fair, he was playing DeAndre Hopkins and Mike Evans for crying out loud. There's a lot of quarterbacks that would have tough games against those two, but he's thrown into the fire as a rookie, and he's not. He hasn't been what's killed them, which that's what you want. You don't want to be the guy that to be honest, Darrell Baker was against the Browns weeks and weeks ago. Here,
Tony Brown was against the Saints.
Against Saints, yeah. That seems like a long time ago, just because of the
Say
turn
so much
around
has
and
happened
play.
since then.
Exactly.
It happened so fast.
The Colts season, when something that's a month or month and a half ago can feel like 2 years ago. More stuff from this week with the Colts. Jeff Saturday popped up on the Pat McAfee show this week talking about his stint as interim head coach last year, and he's done this a couple times. Saturday has. He even said at some point that he told Jim Irsay that they're going to go 0-8 with him as head coach, and he was almost right. They went 1-7. So
there's no way they had that conversation, because when at that intro press conference,
Yep.
Jim Irsay was full bore. He was full
Yep.
guns.
Yep.
And I only hire winning coaches and all. So that's the problem in that forum.
Right.
It's very entertaining, but
It
it's
is.
not
exactly accurate.
or probing when you throw stuff out there. So it'd be really interesting to have. This isn't shade on McAfee, but a real journalist interview someone to where there's pushback.
Yeah, I just think you can't treat it as real
Correct.
journalism. It's talk radio, and that's
Correct.
fine.
That's
It's
fine.
It's a little different. Like we're doing kind of talk radio a little bit right now with the whole podcast format. So it's yeah, but you're right. It's not the in-depth. It's not the
You're not getting hard-hitting
probing. Yeah,
questions
exactly.
on things.
I had to change the culture and all that, and
It's not Andrea Kramer sitting down with Jim Irsay for HBO Real
Right.
Sports. To be perfectly honest, it's a
when,
little different.
you ask meaningful follow-ups,
Right.
to get to real answers.
Like Jim, you know what you're saying right here is not
Right.
going to be taken too well.
Right, and he said, "Oh, trust me, I don't know." But
Yeah.
So I just want people to understand. It's always consider the source, consider what you're looking at and reading, and it's more entertainment than it is probative value.
Yeah, and this interview with Pat McAfee, it was that he talked about some things I think that were obvious, that the culture was not good last year with where they were. The offense was challenged. They needed to fix the offensive line. And to be fair to Saturday, you can say that, yeah, he could have done some kind of job there, but it would have been very much dependent, is the word I'm looking for, on who they hired as offensive line coach. And it seems like this staff hired a pretty good offensive line coach, because Tony Sparano Jr. has them playing pretty well this year.
It's night and day from last year on this unit.
And the same guys.
Same-
we
same
talked about
team,
this
same
all
guys.
offseason, that it was the same guys. And that was a very direct view into what the Colts thought the problem was last year, was the guy who was coaching these guys. They figured the new guy brought in would be the difference, and he certainly has been a difference.
What's crazy, it's the same guys with less continuity. They
You're right.
missed very few starts last year because of injury, and this year they've had, I think it's 6 or 7 different combinations. Bernard Ryman misses 2 games. Kelly's missed 3. Braden's missed, 5 if he doesn't play this week?
I think so.
So it's really amazing. And all the concerns there we've had about the swing tackle and Blake Freeland's been a godsend. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's
about that?
he struggled early with playing left tackle against elite players, but he's not been an issue, which is a good thing for an offensive lineman.
Right? How about a 4th round pick, or was he was 4th round, right? Or was 5th? Okay, yeah. I think he thought he was 4th. Yeah, getting in there and actually playing a meaningful role.
And
on this
they've gotten
team.
good play from Wesley French when he's had to fill in
Yeah.
for Ryan Kelly.
Absolutely.
Will Fries has been pretty good as well.
And
so,
Bernard Ryman is your left tackle of the
Absolutely.
future.
Yeah, sure seems
and,
like it.
And probably next year you're going to pay out the nose for it.
Yep, you have to.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, that's a problem you want.
Correct.
You know, we've talked about that with Kwity Paye and Ryman. We kind of gave our first look at that this past offseason as we were looking down the line, down the future, but will become even more of a issue issue's not the right word, more under the microscope, I guess,
right.
This coming year. Looking back to last week, the Colts, winners again on the road, beat the Titans in overtime, 31-28, handing Tennessee their first home loss of the season. The Colts road warriors more true, apparently.
5-2, is that what they are?
5-1.
5-1.
Yeah. Away from Lucas Oil Stadium this year. It'd be nice to get some more home wins, but nevertheless, the road wins are pretty nice. It was a wild game, absolutely wild. Here in Indianapolis, Debbie Knox was having her go away party, because people here in Central Indiana know Debbie, who's been a fixture on Indianapolis television for 40 years, but she was having her go away party at the same time as this game. So I was out there. I was watching the game intermittently as I was celebrating her career here. But it was, every time I looked up at the TV, it was something insane was happening. Yes, and whether it was Alec Pierce finally getting a couple deep balls thrown his way, whether it was the special teams, it seems like the special teams beats Tennessee like every year because they've had blocked punts against them in the past. They've had big plays. Yeah, EJ Speed had one. I think he might have even recovered it, or somebody did. I can't remember who it was. Yeah,
he either blocked it or I think he blocked it.
He blocked it. Yeah. But
and they fired their special teams coach.
They did the very next day. So anytime you could get an opposing coach fired, you probably had a pretty good day in that area. That's no disrespect.
It was probably building.
It
was
that. Yes, exactly.
But when you have two punts blocked, one blocked and one smothered for a fumble.
Yeah, smothered is the right
and
word.
You miss an extra point that costs you the game.
Yep.
You got to hold somebody accountable.
Here's what you could take away from that. If I'm Matt Gay this week, I'm going to my backup holder and going through everything with him, Like just, okay, we need to make sure that if this happens, we're on the same page here. That if this happens, you turn it here, you turn it this way, and this is what I want, this is what I don't want. Because I felt for Ryan Tannehill in that situation. He comes in, he has to hold because
I still thought it was a good hold.
I thought it was a decent hold. Like the laces weren't in, they weren't out.
They weren't out. Right, they were like at 2:00. I don't know what it was, but goodness gracious, make a kick.
Yeah. The kick's got to be made in that instance, and that would have been the winning kick. So we're talking about something completely different this week if that happens differently. But the special teams came up big. Alec Pierce came up big. Michael Pittman Jr. came up big. There were a lot of things to like about that win, even though it was
6 sacks again.
Yeah, 6 sacks again. Even though it was one that went to overtime against a team that's 4-7, 4-8, or whatever the heck their record is right now. Yeah. I think it's a road win against a division opponent. I think you still come out of that feeling pretty darn good because of what you saw from your team, Chap, and from a couple players who you want to have big roles down the stretch this year.
We've probably talked about this. These guys are not going to make it easy over the last 5 games. It's not going to be like we've talked 30-10 in the fourth quarter. They're going to have to scratch and overcome, and whether it's a fumble by the quarterback inside the 5, which is just unbelievably bad, or whatever. The way this team is structured, primarily offensively, it's not going to be easy. So you find a way, and you never have. At the end of the season, they're not going to say, "How did you guys get to 11-6?" They're not. They don't care.
Right.
So find a way. That's the mode they're in, and like we'll get to, they're right there in the playoff hunt. They just are, and we all thought that the meaningful games they would be playing in December would be to get the quarterback experience. Well, no, now it's to get in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And that's, as we talked about last week, getting in the playoffs now is important. Like that's a culture builder to get into the playoffs, and that was something that we just mentioned with Jeff Saturday and his evaluation of the team. Which you can knock Jeff Saturday's interim coaching record all you want, but you can't knock his evaluation of the team that the culture needed a reshape. And if you can make the playoffs, if you can fight down the stretch to get in. And you mentioned the record, Chap, 11-6. The funny thing is that's not a record that's out of the picture.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, for them right now. Like they would have to go 4-1 down the stretch. There's 5 more games. That's correct.
It's doable.
And it's very doable with the record that they have, the teams that they have to face down the stretch for sure. So that begins with the Cincinnati Bengals, of course, who are 6-6, 4th in the AFC North. They have lost 3 of their last 4, but did beat the Jaguars on Monday Night Football this past week. Starter Joe Burrow out. Jake Browning had himself a day against the Jacksonville defense. Holy heck. And he's an undrafted free agent, for crying out loud. He played at Washington before Michael Penix Jr. was there, if that's a name that rings a bell to you college football fans. But he threw for 354 yards and 1 touchdown, no interceptions against the Jaguars. Was very efficient with the ball, too. I don't know exactly how many incompletions he had, but it was like a handful. It was not
like
many.
4 or 5, something along those lines.
27 to 32 or something
like
that?
Yeah,
I think so.
Something ridiculous.
And he averaged like almost 10 yards per completion.
And it helps to have Jamar Chase throwing
the ball.
They've
got a nice group of receivers that helps, for sure.
Chase is number 1, obviously, but you go past him, and there's T. Higgins, there's Tyler Boyd, there's a lot of guys. There's Joe Mixon can catch it out of the backfield. They have a lot of guys who can do damage. And they did against the Jaguars. And the Jaguars had won like 3-4 in a row or whatever it was. They were like, what were they, like 8-point favorites in that game or something, according to Vegas? And they ended up losing outright just because the Bengals were efficient on offense. They figured out how to attack that defense. And Trevor Lawrence got hurt too. And Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk got hurt as well. Both those guys.
Kirk's done for the year, isn't he?
I had heard that he was going to have surgery.
Some kind of a core surgery?
Yeah. Which Which hurts, absolutely.
Yes.
He's not Calvin Ridley, but he's important for that offense, man, to keep the chains moving. And he can catch he's not in the same vein as Michael Pittman Jr. in terms of a physical receiver, but he's the guy that can catch 8 balls for 80 yards, and you get 3 of those are important first downs at some point throughout the game, and that's why they paid him $70 million and got scoffed at.
Number that they gave him, but then it has paid off for them.
So that could be a factor down the stretch, and we've kind of the past few weeks said kind of thrown the division out the window for the Colts. But if Trevor Lawrence can't play and if Christian Kirk can't play, then it's kind of back in the picture again.
A 3-game losing streak from the Jaguars would put you in, because that's the problem is, and Mike and I had talked about this before. Since the Jaguars swept the Colts, it's essentially a 3-game lead. So the Colts have to be 1 up on the standings.
And you need to see what it does if there's a 3-way tie with Houston, which is
also
possible?
Not impossible.
Certainly possible.
Very much possible.
But that's why I thought it was more important that the Bengals lose, because it pretty much eliminates them from something else, because I had pretty much given up the AFC South. But the thing with Trevor Lawrence, it muddies things up.
It does.
I think it helps right now Houston more than the Colts, because Houston's in a better spot. Mm-hmm. Did Houston beat?
They split.
They've split. Okay.
Yeah. And they've got 3 division games left too.
Right. Well, doesn't Jacksonville have Tennessee twice? I think.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I know that Houston has Tennessee twice.
Maybe that's what but it's there for them. But the fact that there's a 4-way tie for the wild card, it's just, and you look at who, and you're going to play Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Probably without Pickett. Mm-hmm. So you got Mitchell
Trubisky there.
So, but again, and prior to Monday night, I kind of thought Cincinnati was going to be a game that you really, really should win. Mm-hmm. And then Browning goes out there and has a all-pro day.
Yep.
But it's going to come back to, can these guys I'm stuck on find a way. Can they do what it takes and make those 3 or 4 plays? And to this point during this stretch, they've done that.
And starts with the Bengals this weekend. Offensively, Bengals 20th in the NFL, averaging just 20.5 points per game. They have not been the offensive juggernaut we thought they would be in the offseason, because Joe Burrow was injured at the start of the year and kind of worked his way back and then got injured again. So they've been trying to find themselves offensively, although, as we mentioned, they still have weapons and they still can explode from time to time. You just try to prevent yourself from being the team that gives it up. They have not been consistent in scoring this year. The Colts still top 10. Hanging in there, 8th in the league in scoring.
Figure.
I know, in 25 points per game. And after those 2 back-to-back with the Patriots and the Panthers, we were at the time saying that it's not likely they're going to finish top 10. We said that on this podcast. I mean, we were talking with other people who cover the team in the locker room, thinking the same thing. But they have, and I think, Chap, you'd point to Shane Steichen's influence over the past couple games to turn things around and figuring out something that works coming out of the bye week. They've certainly been a much better offensive football team.
Yeah, we were talking, and our buddy Joel Erickson at the Star, I think he wrote about it today, about how they've gotten to be a top 10 offense without your quarterback. Without Jonathan Taylor, basically has missed 6 games. I mean, I include the 1 game he came back when he didn't do much. So, and with the injuries in the offensive line, it's really amazing how they've done. It does not make sense. There's supposed to be reason behind why you are what you've done over, we're talking 12 games. This is not like a small snapshot. So it's really, as we've talked, Shane Steichen's not going to be coach of the year, but doggone it, at least mention him in the discussion. The only guy that might have done more with less is Stefanski, maybe, but he's got a all-world defense.
Right.
So I just think it's, kudos to him so far. You got to close, but to do what they've done with a quarterback that we criticize more than praise, mm-hmm. and a running game that it's not really numbers-wise. I don't think it's been sort of okay, but the eye test, it doesn't pass it. So I think kudos to the staff, all the staff.
Yep, and through here in Week 13, they've already beaten what Vegas thought they would do this year. They got their 7th win this past week. So if you bet on the over 6.5,
I think I went with my stepdaughter and we took the under. So I think I owe her some money.
Well, there you go. Congrats to her.
I know.
Darn it, Chap. What are you just skeptical?
Well, she was in Vegas and she said, "Hey, it's 6.5, and you know what you're doing." And I said, let's put 50 on the under. So her and I have lost 25 each.
And the Colts were second to last in the NFL in terms of that number. They were tied with a couple other teams, but I think Arizona was the worst. They had a 4.5 number, something like that. But it goes to you credit. It's got to start with the coaching staff and what they've done to take this team that was not expected to do anything, and then you lose your rookie quarterback and is already right now 7-5 and in that final playoff spot as we stand. Passing yards, Bengals are 17th in the league, 225 yards per game. Colts 16th, so they're right there, 226 yards per game, right around that range. Rushing yards, Bengals dead last in the NFL
with
right now.
Joe Mixon.
Unbelievable.
Right? Yep. It really is. They have not been able to figure things out. 82 yards per game, 3.9 yards per rush. The Colts all the way up in 12th in the league, 115.8 yards per game, 4.1 yards per rush. So, hey, this is a good game to get Grover Stewart back, to just grind them into the dirt.
Because you know Mixon can do it. He can take over a game.
You say, not in this game. Like, you want them to be completely one-sided there and to be able to tee off, have that pass rush go.
And make Jake Browning do it again.
Exactly. Like you recognize what Jake Browning did. 100%. That was a great game. Like you said,
maybe it was good that he did that because he got your attention.
Yes. Like you want to put it on him to do it again. You don't want to just say, well, we're going to go for the pass and see if this 32nd ranked rush offense can beat us. I don't think that would be the strategy. You want to bottle up Joe Mixon there and force Jake Browning to beat you in this game, in spite of those offensive rankings. Let's see, what's next? Big plays. The Bengals have 34 big plays this year, 29 passes, 5 rushes. Colts have 45 themselves. If I had told you preseason that the Colts would have 10 more, Matt, big plays than the Bengals at this point in the year, you would have told me what?
I would have kicked you off this podcast, Dave.
Dave, you're done.
You're done. You're done.
What are you smoking?
We've overserved you.
Exactly. Hard no, but here we are at this point of the year, and that is the case. Points allowed on defense, the Bengals are 22nd in the league, allowing 22.8 points per game. Colts still down there in 27th, 24.7 points per game.
Yeah, they're still paying for that 3 games where they gave up 37.
Yes.
Yep. And they also just gave up 28 anyway to the Titans.
Yep.
There's been some games here where they're still giving up 24, 28. It's hard to work that number down once you've given up some of those big numbers.
Season,
yes. Like it's hard to. You have to get a couple in a row where it's like 9, 6, 13.
Right.
And like you said earlier, Chap, it doesn't seem like that's kind of the MO. It's going to be some more closer games, some ones where you battle it out. And the Colts have been gritty and have done that. They have been a mentally tough team in these scenarios and winning these close games. But it's probably going to have to continue that way, as much as we say, hey, the rush defense might be better, and say, hey, the pass rush defense has been pretty good lately. Other teams are still finding ways to put up some points. It's just they're making the plays in crunch time to win these games. So,
well, and they, there's always a but whenever these guys win. It came with Derrick Henry out with a concussion. If he doesn't miss the bulk of the fourth quarter and overtime, maybe. But that's you play with the hand you're dealt, and that's what the Colts are doing.
That's another play I saw just randomly as I was looking up at the going away party. I saw Zaire Franklin clock Derrick Henry and him fall down kind of limp. I was like, uh-oh, he's done for the day. And that unfortunately for the Titans proved to be correct. Let's see. Total defensive yards. The Bengals are dead last in the NFL.
I'm stunned.
Giving up 388 yards per game. Colts still 26th, not so hot at 355 yards per game. The worst defense in the league in terms of yards given up. So, hey, even if they give up some yards, you figure Matt Gay will get some chances in this game, if nothing else, and hopefully not as many, that you can finish some of those drives. Pass defense, Bengals 27th in the league. Rush defense, they're also 27th in the league. So they're not really particularly good at either of them. You can attack them both ways, it appears. 254 yards passing given up per game, 134 yards given up on the ground, and averaging 4.8 yards per carry. Yeah. That's a chunk.
That's a big number.
Yeah, and if you can get Zach Moss to attack that, because I don't think this is still no Jonathan Taylor at practice this week, and he won't be back yet.
He's back at practice, but he's watching.
Right. After his thumb surgery. So that's a Zach Moss joint as they say. Colts 17th in pass defense in the league, and they've fallen down to 26th in the league in rush defense without Grover Stewart. I think they were up at 19th or something like that before he left.
Right before he left.
Had a couple of those games that, as you guys said, had been falling out a little bit, but really kind of hit the bottom of the barrel once he was gone. So they are right in that range. It should be between 17th and 20th in both of those avenues right now. If they have Grover Stewart. Turnovers, Bengals are one of the best teams in the league in turnover margin. They're a +9 squad. They have 19 takeaways and just 10 turnovers. They don't.
That's how you overcome being unable to stop people.
That's exactly what I thought, because I looked at their offensive rankings and their defensive rankings. I'm like, how are these guys 6-6? And I know Burrow's not been in there. There you go, +9 on the turnovers. That's a big number.
Colts are +2. It's always good to be in plus territory with 20 takeaways, 18 turnovers. But you'd rather not have 18 turnovers.
Yeah, you would, because, and again, last week, they forced 2, but they also had 2. So it's been like that the last couple of weeks. A +1, or they'd be a +1 or they'd be a +0 because they've had the same amount as their opponent.
Yep, and still could be obviously a factor. It's a factor in every game, but could be a key factor this weekend. On offense, we've talked a bit about the Bengals offense and Jake Browning being the guy. He does not carry the ball too much, but he does sometimes, has 10 carries for 70 yards, so he's been efficient. Had 2 carries for 22 yards against Jacksonville, so if you let him go, he will go. But that's not his strength. By any stretch. It's kind of more like Joe Burrow. It's not his strength, but he could go and he could run.
Every once in a while, when you need to pick up a 3rd and 5 or something, then he
did that
loose.
against Jacksonville.
Yes.
Near the end, he got loose and he just kept running because they didn't get him down. But those are the guys that just frustrate you because that's not what they do. And you let them hurt you, it just extends drives.
Joe Mixon, 689 yards rushing on the year, 3.8 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns. Another touchdown receiving with 39 catches and 281 yards through the air. Jamar Chase is the most dangerous player on the team.
He's not Tyreek Hill, but doggone, he's not far behind.
Exactly. Arguably right behind Tyreek in terms of most dangerous players, certainly in the AFC, in terms of those outside threats. 86 catches this year, 1,063 yards, 7 touchdowns, has 11 catches of 20-plus yards. So he's basically getting a 20-yard-plus catch every game. And he's had a couple games where that was not the case, when they were really struggling. So he's had multiple of those games where he just finds ways to get open downfield. So to stop that, pass rush has got to get to Brown. Exactly, and it's like you can't rely on your secondary to guard for 3 seconds, 4 seconds consistently in this game. Can't do it because the Bengals have guys that will beat you. And it's not just Jamar Chase. It's Tyler Boyd, 55 catches for 499 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's T. Higgins, 30 catches for 364 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their tight end Tanner Hudson has 26 catches for 228 yards. But you look at that whole battery, and there's a lot of names that scare you. But obviously Jamar Chase is number one. But any one of those guys, I wouldn't be surprised if there's 3 or 4 seconds you give Jake Browning in the pocket and he chucks it deep. Any one of them could be back there long. And we kind of talked about this a bit last week, that the Titans had a couple players who had some good deep threat. There were multiple guys who had some of these long, big plays for them this season. Bengals another one of those teams. It doesn't matter if it's the right side of the field, the left side of the field. Anybody could break it deep on any play. And that makes it more difficult to defend, that you have multiple guys that are threats to go deep. It's unlike the Colts. They've used Michael Pittman more in the shorter role.
He's got as many catches as Chase does.
He does.
86 each.
Mm-hmm. But Jamar Chase has a few more yards.
Couple hundred yards.
Than him, exactly. Alec Pierce has been the Colts' deep threat. Whenever the rare times they have gone deep, it's different that the Bengals can use a bunch of different guys to hit you deep.
And they can do it all the time.
Yep.
So, and with the Colts, we've seen them, they've got to get the right coverage, get the right play in, and kind of schematically get something drawn up.
And when you got a Chase, you just sort of say, get open.
Yeah, go.
I'll find you.
We'll throw it to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And even if he's not open, he's open. Give him a chance there against Darrell Baker Jr., against Jalen Jones. You like that matchup if you're the Bengals against either of them, wherever he is on the field, if there's one-on-one coverage for sure. On defense, leading tackler for the Bengals, linebacker Logan Wilson has 97 tackles, and a fellow linebacker Jermaine Pratt has 89. Safety Dax Hill with 80, so there's a good good mix of guys up there with quite a few tackles. They're getting production from quite a few players. On defense, Trey Hendrickson can get after the quarterback. He has 11.5 sacks this year, so you've got to be sure you know where he is. I know Braden Smith was out on Wednesday this week, was deemed did not participate.
I don't think he's there today.
Right? Okay. So there's another player to watch this weekend, and it could be another Blake Freeland effort at right tackle this week, which we've said is not the end of the world, but it's also not ideal.
It's not Braden Smith.
Exactly. There's a reason you paid Braden Smith $19 million a year, and there's a reason that Blake Freeland fell down to the 4th round in the draft. Has he been more solid, I think, than I anticipated? Yes. Do you want Trey Hendrickson going against him for 65 snaps on Sunday?
He only has to win 3.
Exactly. And he's the best player on the field. Like we've talked about that before. Absolutely crazy, but that's the mindset you have to have as an offensive tackle, that's unacceptable. That winning 98% is unacceptable, because you're going to lose games if you are a 98% successful offensive tackle.
It is, but it's true.
It is, and like I said, that's just the mindset that they have to have. It's unique. Let's see here. Where are we? Sam Hubbard 5 sacks, B.J. Hill 4 sacks as well for the Bengals defense. The Colts are 7th in the playoff picture right now. They have 5 games remaining. We said after Cincinnati, they face the Steelers, who will likely have Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback.
That's a Saturday night game, right?
That's a Saturday 4 o'clock game,
afternoon.
which is going to be a heck of a day in Indianapolis sports.
I saw that. Go ahead.
You have the Colts there at 4 o'clock. At the exact same time, over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, you have the Purdue Boilermakers tipping off against the Arizona Wildcats in what's going to be a top 5 matchup in college basketball. And earlier in the day, actually at Gainbridge, it's Ball State and Indiana State.
Chirp.
Exactly. And Indiana State has had a really strong start to the season. They've played really well. So has Ball State. They're 7-2. They've struggled, not struggled to that point, but they haven't been dominant. Indiana State has looked really good. So yeah, I think that's going to be an intriguing game at the Fieldhouse, and all that. So it's going to be a great day of sports downtown, man. And it's going to keep us busy and on our toes for sure. Going here, there, and everywhere, wherever we have to wind up. At any given time to cover it and to bring you solid coverage on Fox 59.
That's why we've got a good depth. That's why the depth of our staff will help.
Yes, darn right. And we'll bring that to you on air and online December 16th as the Colts face another one of these teams. That are in the hunt for those final playoff spots.
That are no better off than what the Colts are.
Exactly. And you could argue, and I would argue, the Colts are in a better position, like I mentioned kind of near the top of the show, that things are breaking their way. For once in a blue moon, things are going the Colts' way. That they're facing Jake Browning with the Bengals. They're facing Mitchell Trubisky with the Steelers. They're facing other teams down the stretch, like the Texans they've beaten before. The Raiders they've been playing Aiden O'Connell all year. Respect to Aiden O'Connell, but nevertheless, it's not like they were facing last year with quarterback after quarterback down the stretch. It was Dak Prescott, it was Kirk Cousins, it was all these other elite quarterbacks that you had to face. That was the story last year. This year, it's not that; it's the opposite of that. And they've been able to take advantage.
And people say, "Well, look who they're playing." This is who they're playing.
Exactly.
So you're playing.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No one's ever going to apologize for that, but at the same time, when you're presented this path to the playoffs, take advantage of it, because I think what we've talked about and what you made a good point of, this is culture building. Yes, the number one priority, and we talked ad nauseum, was to get the quarterback experience. Well, that didn't happen, but the most important thing in building culture environment is positive reinforcement. Mm-hmm. This is okay. So this is why we do this, and so it's gonna every win's gonna hurt their draft positioning. That's gone. That narrative is out the window.
Yep.
Now this is about. I don't care if this team. I don't believe they are built for a deep playoff run. I don't care. Just get in and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. And take that later draft pick that Chris Ballard will trade for 3 second-round picks.
I think he's going to trade up and get Marvin Jr.
Let's go.
He'll trade for 4.
Let's go.
Would that be the most Chris Ballard move?
It would be.
Yes. That would be I would
mandated from the front office or from the owner's box if that happens.
Just a rabbit hole to go down. I saw a posting today that the NIL people in Columbus are trying to come up with a number to keep Marvin Jr.
Good luck with that.
In Columbus. If he's a top 5 pick next year, it's 4 years, $40 million. With the 5th-year option, it's probably
going to be 25 or 30. It could be 30 by then.
But the most important thing to these players is come to the NFL and you're a year closer to your second contract.
Exactly.
So NIL money is great and all that stuff.
Right.
If Marvin stays this year, I'd be surprised if Marvin plays in the bowl game.
Yeah.
Are they in the Cotton Bowl? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Whatever. You don't risk it.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't risk it. So, but yeah, the NIL is crazy. It's another rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But it's just tells you how the focus changes from time to time. But again, like we talked with the Colts, every win hurts their playoff spot.
Doesn't matter.
Too bad.
Yeah, they're in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, Cotton Bowl versus Missouri.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Ohio State, you would think would win that game. It depends on who's in and who's out, of course, and in all those bowls except for the college football playoff, those 4, which that's a whole nother ball of wax that we don't have to get into, that we won't here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.
The only one I remember is the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl
yes.
with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish
and
Oregon State Beavers.
There's the Syracuse I know is in the roofing, like roofclaims.com Boca Raton Bowl or something like that. I love it, man. I love all the names. It's fantastic.
It is so much
I think
fun.
It's hilarious. But anyway, practice reports from this week. The Colts did not practice Juju Brents, Braden Smith, or EJ Speed in Wednesday's walkthrough. And so we'll has anybody looked on Twitter to see what our fine friends out there have said, Chap?
Our fine friend Brett Bensley, Juju Brents has returned to practice.
Hey, let's go.
Wow. Hey, Juju.
I can't imagine him playing Sunday just because he's
tough.
missed so much time.
Yeah, exactly.
JT's at practice, but he's watching and not practicing.
Right.
Zach Moss is not practicing.
Well, that's fun.
And then Braden Smith is not there. EJ Speed is not there. Somebody else had something. James Boyd, Grover Stewart's practicing.
Good.
So, but Braden Smith and
Juju.
I just can't imagine him being out for 5 or 6 weeks and then playing.
Yeah,
but
all of a sudden, you practice on Thursday and what's always a lighter Friday, and then you play. For him, I think that would be tough. Maybe if it's Stephon Gilmore last year, but I don't know about Juju.
Grover Stewart's missed 7 weeks, 6 games in the bye, and I asked him, I said, do you lose your football shape? Because Zach Moss said you do lose football shape. Now, maybe it's running back and
defensive tackle is different.
Grover said, no, I'm fine. I said, so no pitch count? He said, all day. I'm out there also. He'll play.
I do love Grover.
He's great.
I do.
He was so good to talk to Wednesday. He wouldn't get into what went into the suspension. He took something he shouldn't have taken.
Right.
I mean, the league just didn't throw darts. And we forgot to mention news of the week. Al-Qaeda Muhammad was suspended for 6 games for PEDs. He was on the practice squad, which I tell you, we talked about the pass rush. The fact that Muhammad cannot get on the active roster tells you where this pass rush is. Because he started like 28 games for these guys. And a lot of times he was a strong rotational player.
Yep.
But Grover is just, it really crushed him to be suspended, because it's out there for everybody to see, and it's on you. But I just think he means so much to this team beyond being a very, very near Pro Bowl level player. What he means to the locker room, the teammates, is immense. I hope he has an influence on the field.
Likewise. And you hope he makes an impact down the stretch and then gets a new contract in the offseason, because he'll be up for it.
Is he like 30? I think he's 30.
Yep. And he's already got one. Get a second one. Get a third contract. That's awesome.
Right.
We talk about the. Yeah, go ahead.
You talked about getting a second one. To get a second free agent contract is amazing.
Yeah, and we talked about that with Jack Doyle, going from undrafted free agent to getting 3 or 4 NFL contracts, and just being that fortunate. And fortunate's not the complete right word, because he was good enough. It's not all just fortune and luck.
Him the money,
exactly. Yeah, it was quality, it was skill, and with Grover, it's the same thing.
What was Grover, a 4th round pick in 17?
4th or 5th out of Albany State there in Georgia, a D2 player.
It's amazing how this team, I'm sure every team has this, but how they've gotten so much value from mid to late picks. I mean, Zaire Franklin.
Yep.
Matthew Adams got 4 years here, so it's
and got a contract in Chicago afterward. Yep.
So good for those guys, but Grover's a guy. Yes, he made a mistake. There's so much out there but at the same time, not in his defense, it's totally available on what you can and can't take.
Right.
You go to the NFLPA website, and it's got all the banned substances. So there's no excuse, other than being lazy, I guess. I don't know, to not check out what you're ingesting.
There's so many new products and that are coming out continuously that have banned substances in them. And you say banned substances, like I could go buy it and take it right now. They're not illegal substances. But for the NFL, they are banned substances because they have deemed them performance enhancing or masking agents that can mask in a drug test the presence of actual performance enhancing drugs. So you say that there's two sides to this coin. Obviously, two sides that both have to be true at the same time. One is Grover is looking for the best advantage that he can have because he's a professional athlete. That is his job. Nutritionally, he's looking for the best possible advantage to be the best possible player he can be, and trying to find supplements that can help him do that. And two, you just can't take substances that are sketchy. And there are resources to help you with this. Like if you have members or people on the team, nutritionists on the team that can help you with this. Like if Grover said, "Hey, I want to try this new substance," can someone look at this for me to make sure? Like there are people there who will absolutely tell him yes or no.
That's why there's no real excuse for doing it.
Right. Like you do it and like you said, it's an ounce of lazy or maybe a pound of laziness to just find it and take it immediately because you don't need it this second. Like you say, "Hey, well, can I take this?" Sure. Okay. If you don't take it, I don't know, like have another protein shake that is acceptable and then move on and try to take this substance next week. So I understand what he's doing is trying to be the best player he can be. But you also have to understand that there are so many ways that this could have been avoided. So you move on. Like now it's in the past. Like you move on.
And that's what he said. It's in the past. I'm moving forward.
And I think we should too. Like after this, it's not a deal. But for this week, it's a deal that we can actually break down and explain a little bit of what happened and why it happened and why it shouldn't happen.
I think WIBC's Kevin Bowen asked him about, do you know what it was? Well, yes, he does. I mean, he knows. But he didn't want to get into it, and that's fine. But you have to ask. But it was dumb. Mm-hmm. Dumb, lazy, whatever you want to say. But you move on, and that's what he's done, and that's what the team has to do.
Now, this could be as simple as like going home from practice and feeling tired and buying an energy drink that has something in it that has.
It was a different brand that you've taken. And
exactly.
Oops.
Yeah, and dadgummit, I wasn't paying attention. So it could be that simple.
I have a hard time believing these players at this level would knowingly do that.
Right. I agree.
Because there's too many guards that are going to catch you. So but again, ignorance is simply no defense.
I mean, you say that, but then guys like in a different context, I mean, guys like Isaiah Rodgers still bet in the you would think that they know that there are so many things in context that why would you gamble? Why would you take PEDs? Yet guys still do. And guys still would take performance-enhancing drugs.
But you're just tested, randomly tested now. Who was it? Was it Jonathan Taylor said he posted that he had his big game when he broke his thumb. Yeah. And he said, well, I've got my, I'm getting tested today. It seems like every time a player has a good game, you get tested.
Randomly.
I still remember in Houston one year, T.Y. Hilton going off, having one of his vintage Houston games, and him having to wait for him at his locker because he was randomly tested after this game.
And it took
a while to get the test done.
Because he's out of fluids.
Exactly. They're all gone. He had to find a way to make this test work. And he did, to his credit. And to his credit, spoke with us as everybody, I'm sure, wants to leave. But all the Colts PR staff, they knew that we needed to talk to T.Y., obviously. It was just a frustrating situation that they want to go. T.Y. has to do this. He has to talk to the media for at least a couple minutes here. But man, it's unforgiving, like you said.
Until he can give them a specimen.
Exactly.
It's tough to do on demand when you've got no fluids to give.
Exactly. Sometimes it's tough to do on demand anyway.
Yes,
crying out loud. But if you have no fluids after running around and
I can't give you what I ain't got.
Exactly. Over and through the Texans secondary for the past 3 hours for crying out loud. Anyway, fun story there. The Colts take on the Bengals in Cincinnati on Sunday. Bengals injury report, by the way, halfback Chase Brown, hamstring, offensive tackle Jonah Williams with a back injury were limited on Wednesday. Now we get to this weekend. Colts-Bengals, 1 p.m. kickoff, airs on CBS 4 right here in the central Indiana market. Two teams vying for one of those final playoff spots. I'm going to look up real quick what the line is for this week's game.
It's probably about even, isn't it?
I would imagine it's probably pretty close. Hang on. Colts-Bengals line. Hooray for Google. Let's go. Cincinnati Bengals. Predictions odds.
You could have done this beforehand.
I know. I'm just lazy like that.
So could I. I forget every week because I love this part of the show.
I don't because I figured one of you guys would do it.
The Bengals are actually 1-point favorites on their home field, so they have just the home field advantage kind of was what the separation is, according to Vegas. The over-under 44, so we're expecting a 22-21, 23-22 type ball game at that. Actually, the money line, both teams are minus 110. On the money line. So it's as close to a pick-em as possible, but they gave the Bengals the 1-point advantage right now. I'll go first, then Matt and Chap. I think at some point the Colts' road fortunes have to find their level. They've been getting like crazy wins like last week. I think just a little too much. I think this is a water finds its level game. This is a regress to the mean. I think the Colts are better than average on the road. And they've proven that. I think they've shown their grit, their tenacity to go on the road in tough environments and win close games. But I don't think you can keep doing that. I think at some point something catches up to you. It just seems like the Bengals have the players to make you pay, that they're going to catch up to you, whether it's Trey Hendrickson with a key sack, Jamar Chase with a key touchdown at the right time. Do I think the Colts can win this game? Absolutely, but I just think that the Bengals are able to eke this one out. They get some momentum from last week as well, some confidence from last week in their backup quarterback, so they have some confidence on their side. I'm going to go 24-23. I think that's a pretty good right and around that range. Final score for the Bengals. It's a tight game, but one that the Colts can't quite finish at the end. Matt, what do you think?
I'm going to go. I was bearish on the Bulls on the Colts last week. I didn't think that they would be able to pull that one out on the road. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Colts this week, 28-24, as long as they take care of the ball.
All right, Chap.
I'm in the save get mode on my computer. I've said 23-20 the last 2 weeks. Good guys, find a way. I'm still there. I agree with you that at some point some breaks won't go their way, but I want to see the quarterback do it again. I just do.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
So many times, and I can't come up to all of them in my head right now, but so many times the guy has that great game, but then you see why he hadn't done it before that.
Right.
So, but that doesn't mean these guys can go out there and have 3 turnovers. I think they find a way because it's just a great story. But if they lose, that wild card spot is going to get even more crazy.
It's already muddled as
it's already. So, but win this one, and I think there's like a 30%. Right now, there's a 65% chance of making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, according to the Times,
New York Times playoff simulator. And if they lose this, and it differentiates by like 30%.
Yeah, it's a 30% swing.
But that's what it'll be, and then it'll change next week. I think they find a way. Because while things have gone their way, they've not really done anything. Well, they blocked 2 punts, so I shouldn't say that they've done things extraordinary. But offense and defense, they really haven't done things that they shouldn't be doing, that they couldn't be doing. They've not run the ball well enough. I think they find a way. 23-20.
All right, 23-20 says Chap. We will find out on Sunday. Colts-Bengals, big game in terms of the rest of the season, the wild card hunt, and either taking more of a hold on it.
Wear the orange and black helmets, which I'm sure they will.
I hope so.
Do you like the white and black helmets?
It's okay on occasion. I think the Bengals have such a great helmet that they should always wear that helmet.
The Smash Pumpkin.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I like it too. So we do appreciate you all listening to the Colts Blue Zone podcast. You can read Mike Chappell's work online, fox59.com, cbs4indy.com throughout the week. Also follow us together on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone for news and notes, including practice reports, injury reports, all that stuff. Mike Chappell is at mchappell51. Matt Adams is at Statamatti. I'm Dave Griffiths at DaveG_sports. We appreciate you listening. We'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.